We're staying with the Acts of the Apostles here in our daily reflections. Today, there's reference here to the journeys of St. Paul, the missionary journeys of Paul. There were 3, perhaps 4. The 4th one is somewhat contested. But in the missionary journeys of Paul, it's estimated in the 14 years of his public ministry after his conversion that he traveled about 10,000 miles, and most of this was on foot. Now, that sounds extraordinary to us because we're not a walking people. I mean, we try to park the car near the market when we get to the parking lot because it might cost us 3 or 4 more steps. We're not a walking people, and it's difficult for us to grasp the economy of the time when people really walked everywhere. Even in the 16th century, in the time of Ignatius of Loyola, Ignatius would walk from Spain up to Paris and back to Rome, and they'd just walk all over Europe. And Paul was a walker. Now, that when you estimate 10,000 miles in 14 years, you're going to get a fairly intense journey of walking. Years ago, I did a sabbatical in East Africa, and part of it was in the Turkana Desert in northern Kenya. And there, the people walk everywhere. There is no transportation. They walk and walk and walk. And therefore, when you look at who wins the Boston Marathon or the great marathons of the world, where are the people from? Turkana. They're from the northern part of Kenya, from the desert of Turkana, because their feet are so hard and they're so used to long distance exercise that they become very adept at the marathon. What's interesting about Paul here, just for today's reflection, is his personality. In the 10th chapter of the book of Acts, we have this account of his conversion. He is so intense. He's a driven man. He's passionate. So passionate indeed that he gets letters from the high priest in Jerusalem, and he's going all the way to Damascus to arrest those who belong to the way of Christ. We spoke about that. It's that intensity that he carries when he goes through his conversion. He remains an intense, driven person. Therefore, he will make mistakes. People who are passionate will make mistakes. And he'll make mistakes. I mean, he'll get in a huge conflict with Peter. And if you read the letter to the Colossians, you'll find that he's in intense battle with Peter. And he says, I faced him down and I told him that he was wrong. He's fighting with the first pope. So you have this sense that our personality needs to be integrated into our mission. And therefore, wherever we have passion in some area of life. It might be about your garden, it might be about your house, it might be about your family, or your job, or your reputation. You might have a passion about something where you tend to be driven, particular, demanding about some particular thing in your life. That's what happens to Paul. He takes the passion he had to go and arrest the Christians. And by the way, you'll read there in the book of Acts, the first martyr, St. Stephen, Saul, before he became Paul, Saul is there to witness the martyrdom of Stephen. He has this sense of being driven. He will bring that to his missionary journeys. So he'll bring his personality will not change. His direction will change, but not his personality. Now that's important for us to keep in mind for two reasons. One is that we tend to bring our personality into the manner in which we live our faith. If you're anemic and your personality is just very bland, that's what you will bring to your faith. If you have intensity and you tend to be driven or particular about something, you'll bring that to your faith too. The second thing that interested me about this reading here is that there was a time when we would go out and try to convert people to the Catholic way of life. You know, somebody in our families who wasn't a Catholic would say, have you ever thought about becoming Catholic? We don't do that much anymore. Jehovah's Witnesses ring our bell and say, would you like to know about Jesus Christ or something like that? But we don't do that. We've kind of lost this sense of mission. Should we really talk to somebody about saying, this is what we believe, and we have such an incredible treasure in which we believe, we'd like to share it with you. I feel that maybe we have lost some of that. But that was very strong in the life of Paul. I mean, he had such a deep, deep belief in Jesus Christ that, I mean, he was going to go out and proclaim the Lord, go to ask people to follow the Lord. He was going to preach to the world about his deep, deep belief. We might want to take a second look at our own journey. How well do we witness? Do we speak up? Do we bless ourselves in public? When we're in a restaurant, are we somewhat embarrassed to say we should say a prayer before we eat? If people are not Catholics there, would we ever say, would it offend you if we said a prayer together before we ate? I mean, there are various ways in which I'm not sure we have grasped the intensity of following Jesus Christ. It's worth looking at. It struck me when I was reflecting on this that I don't know if in my own journey of life I am so transparent and so outspoken and such a witness to Jesus Christ. It's worth looking at. Now you might say, you're doing fine, then you praise God. On the other hand, you might say, well, maybe I should be a more articulate, eloquent witness to Jesus Christ, following the intensity of Paul here in the book of Acts. We'll come back and visit Paul again on Wednesday. Okay. We'll pause now for a moment of prayer.